Good morning and welcome to All Falcons. Been messing with the microphone just a little bit, trying to get things straight. So as you come in, let us know how we sound, how I sound, if you can hear me at all. I might turn up the gain just a little bit for you, Nick. But Nick Kendall, welcome in. All Falcons here, as people will start to join us here in the near future. Takes a little second for, as one of our colleagues likes to say, let it breathe a little bit as people start coming in, the notifications start coming out. Nick, how are you, my friend? As you take a big cup of coffee, I was a server in a former life.
I'm doing pretty well. Hopefully, our sounds are good here. A little tired, but doing pretty darn well. It's dark here, but it's not going to rain today, and it's supposed to rain like for 10 days straight after this. So, going to try to enjoy it. And actually, the sun came out last night. We had a beautiful classic Seattle sunset going off behind the Olympics. So, still kind of radiating from that and getting excited, starting to get in that draft point of mind. A lot of tackles, a lot of edge rushers, a lot of cornerbacks to talk about. That'll be fun until April. We have a long way to go, but it's my favorite time of year. We're coming up on it.
Yeah, and speaking of draft, as we start talking about Falcons and Jaguars, this is kind of one of those bittersweet games. You got 4-6 against 2-8. You really want to win this game. I mean, I know, the coaches do, the players do, and all that stuff. But, from the outside looking in, you're kind of looking at it thinking, all right, Jacksonville's sitting in the number 3 spot for the draft at 2-8, and Atlanta's sitting at the number 9 spot in the draft at 4-6. But they're only one game out of dropping to 20. That's what's crazy with the congestion amongst the mediocre in the NFL right now. Is only one game separates a top 10 pick from just being outside of the top 20. So, on the surface, on a high level, I look at it and be like, the Falcons really don't need to win this game. They're not a playoff team. They're not a team that's going to make any noise in the playoffs. But new regime, all of those type of stuff, the fans need something to get behind right now. Middle of the season, that type of thing. So I think they definitely want to go down. I don't have any doubt they want to go down and win this game.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I think in this draft class specifically, maybe you don't have the elite players that you have in many other classes. It's pretty deep. It's a deep class, but I don't know if you have the stratospheric top of the class. I think it was Daniel Jeremiah who said that maybe you could the top 10 last year would completely displace the entire top 10 in this year's class, which is that I think that's a little bit of hyperbole coming in here.
That's Thibodeau finds a spot in the top 5 or 6, depending on Thibodeau wouldn't have made it past 4. Let me put it that way. With the Falcons and their needed edge, he wouldn't have made it past 4 last year.
Yeah, but I mean, but you start to look at it. I mean, Penny Sewell probably better than any tackle in this class. You Jamar Chase obviously better than any wide receiver in this class. I think you maybe can make an argument for Derek Stingley is going to be a really interesting case in this upcoming class because his best tape is his freshman season, and after that he's been injured and not on the field. But like his freshman tape, like that guy moves different than any other cornerback prospect since probably Jalen Ramsey. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens with him. But either way, you get a chance at good players. And if you're losing, if you're in a losing season, I know as well as anybody with the Broncos these recent years, you win a game like this Jacksonville one and like week 17, you're picking 15 in the draft. And it's like, man, if we would have lost that Jacksonville game, we'd have been picking 8. So it's a double-edged sword. And I'm not going to tell anybody how to fan. That's one thing I hate. You should never cheer for them to lose. Well, I'm not cheering for them to win or lose. I'm just looking at the possible outcomes.
Winning the draft. I want them to win the draft. That's what I'm cheering for. I'm cheering for them to win the draft. No, the Dan Quinn did the same thing. Back to back, like 0-7 starts. Once everything's off the table, they start playing a little looser. Win a couple games at the end. Win some games to finish the season. Gets to come back. Then starts 1-7 again, and it's fired. So let's before we get into Jacksonville, let's talk just a little bit about that Patriots game last Thursday. It's been a while. It's been a while since we've seen the Falcons. It's been since Thursday, and the score again, a little bit like the Tampa Bay score. The score was lopsided. It was 25-0, but this game was closer than that. This game, of course. That said, my prediction was, I think they'll have a 2-score lead most of the game and feel very, very comfortable, even if the score doesn't look it. So it was 13-0 for a long time with the Falcons in some pretty good spots to cut it to 1 score, but never did. What did you see from that game? Were there any good, positive takeaways for you?
AJ Terrell is playing at a level that is phenomenal. I think he's one of the top 10 cornerbacks in football right now. His second year in the NFL, which is a big get for the Falcons. I mean, you need more cornerbacks, obviously, but Terrell is playing phenomenal level. His interception was gorgeous. I mean, the instincts, the athleticism to make that play. And Mac Jones isn't making many mistakes. I don't even think that was a mistake on Mac Jones. That was just a guy making
AJ came off
play.
coverage for that.
Yeah.
AJ came off of his man and was spying a little bit. And left his man to go and make it. And I love those plays. I love them. That's a football player. Yeah,
he is phenomenal. He's next level stuff. Another guy who caught my eye was Oluokun.
Oluokun.
I nailed it. Oluokun. I think that he has some great athleticism out there. Sideline to sideline. I actually think he caught my eye a little bit more consistently than Deion Jones, which is shocking considering Deion Jones gets paid. Maybe it's because I have that scout eye in me where it's like I already know about that guy. Who's the new shiny thing? So Oluokun has stepped up to me. I thought he was pretty good, and I thought the safety Harmon also.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought he was okay. I mean, that I'm really grasping here. I mean, the Patriots. The Patriots play as such a uber conservative offensive football because they have such an elite defense that they don't really ask any of their playmakers to do that much, and just Mac Jones control the game. So Falcons didn't really have a chance to stand out that much offensively or defensively because of that. But those guys caught my eye pretty consistently out there when I watched them.
Yeah, I think if you're asking your defense to keep you in the game, they did. Without a doubt. It's just then you flip over to the other side of the ball. And this offensive line is so bad. It's so bad. I think what you see is one thing, and then you're like, okay, I like third-party validation is what we call it. How did Pro Football Focus grade these guys? And the three lowest guys graded on offense were all offensive linemen. And the two highest graded offensive linemen were still in the 60s. That's not a good grade.
No.
Arthur Smith was asked earlier this week, will you make any changes? And he said, everything's on the table. Jason Spriggs came in and played really well at right tackle for Caleb McGarry when McGarry went out against the Dolphins. Now it's a spot start, and we've seen this before. Guys come in and have kind of a flash in the pan. But how much more evidence do you need right now that Caleb McGarry is not getting it done? For the sake of having him do something else, I just go sit. You're going to sit for a week. Get your head together. Something to change it up a little bit, because Spriggs did really well, and we know how athletic Spriggs is. Coming out, and I'd make that change in a heartbeat.
Yeah, McGarry was terrible. I mean, hats off. Also, we want to give credit to Matt Judon. He's been having a phenomenal season. The number 9 for the Patriots and the Red Sleeves, right? He had a terrible Thanksgiving take yesterday. I don't know if you saw that. He was really talking down about mac and cheese. So we don't stand Matt Judon anymore. That one was upsetting to me. But McGarry was beaten like a drum consistently. And the only thing that was the saving grace for him is that I think Jalen Mayfield was even worse. Maybe not as detrimental to the whole unit because a guard can be protected.
It's not as obvious on the interior. You're not out there on the island. You're not exposed quite as much. And I think Jalen Mayfield had more positive plays than McGarry in the run game. And the other part of that is, you're willing to excuse Mayfield a little bit because he's a rookie, and he was drafted to provide depth behind McGarry and maybe push him. Yep. So it was. You're a little more understanding, you're a little bit more forgiving of McGarry than a guy like you're a little bit more all these mix. You're a little bit more forgiving of Mayfield than McGarry, who you traded up to take. It didn't cost you a ton, to be fair. It didn't cost a ton to trade up and get that pick, but you traded up to take him in the first round. It's his third year, and he looks terrible. I think Pro Football Focus has him 70 of 79 eligible offensive tackles. And I think right now that's probably, I don't watch all 79 offensive tackles, obviously, but that seems about right. Let's say hello to a couple of guys coming in on the chat this morning. A little Ram Man coming in. Love that bike. I had 2 of them until the last couple of years, and my uppity neighborhood doesn't allow motorcycles. And I didn't know that until I moved in. So having to store them or try and get to them takes away all the reasons why you have motorcycles to begin with. And I got rid of them. I sold them, and I ache. I see them go by, and I just ache.
Ah.
Peter Middleton comes in and says, surely you'll score points against the Jags. The over-under on this one, Nick, is 46.5.
Oh, that's rough. It's better than the God. I'm really happy I live in the Pacific time zone because the first Thanksgiving game tomorrow I don't have to wake up for. I can be busy doing other things. I think the Lions Bears is like 40, which is terrible. That's like, are we going to watch Northwestern versus Minnesota in the Big Ten network? Right? It's just a god awful game. But yeah, you guys will score points. Jags defense has some talent, no doubt about it. But they're not really a collective whole unit, and they lack talent at really some of the more important positions, right? Like they have some safeties, they have some linebackers, but can't get after the passer, can't cover on the boundary.
If you take these two teams and look at their last two games and average the score is just over 30 to just over 7. So the average score for the last 4 games that these two teams have been involved in is 30-7. So which one of those do you take? Is it that you're giving up 30 points and we're going to go into the 60s, or that you can't score any points and it's going to be 9-7? I think it's going to fall somewhere in between, but
Yeah.
I still like the under on this one. I still like this one.
Yeah, I think it'll still be a closer game. I don't know what the over-under actually is for this one, but I think the Jags, their receivers are dreadful. I don't know why this offseason people talked themselves into Laviska Shenault and DJ Chark being good receiving options, because they've been anything but for Trevor Lawrence. I mean, the amount of beautiful throws or plays that he's gotten them into, and then the receiver just dropping an easy pass has to be maddening. He's going to start losing his golden boy locks here pretty soon, just from stress. I mean, or turning gray or something. But no.
And Nick, sorry to interrupt, but it's one of those where you come from Clemson or Alabama or Ohio State, and you had better receivers in college.
Yep.
Your receivers. You can't tell me that Mac Jones might have had a better receiving group in college than he does at New England, and I'm almost positive Lawrence had better weapons at Clemson than he does right now, especially since one of his top weapons at Clemson was drafted high by the Jaguars and has been hurt. Etienne being out has been, to be fair, they tried to get him some weapons, and they lost the kid for a year. Was just is really unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Lawrence is one, though, where the weapons were not so great at Clemson. We're seeing now. I mean, Justin Ross has not really lived up to it, and post Mike Williams, they haven't really had many great difference-making pass catchers in their offensive line. For how good Clemson is, their offensive line is always dreadful. I can only think of like 2 players in the last 5 years from that Clemson offensive line that have even been drafted. But they've had amazing quarterbacks, which has raised everybody, and they've had amazing defensive line talent. If you can have a great quarterback and amazing defensive line talent, you're going to go far in college football. Those are probably the big 2 ones.
And Dave, good morning. Welcome in. Looking forward to your contributions to the chat. And Peter says, any positive contract extensions due in Atlanta? I think there will be some restructures. If you look at the Falcons cap situation and their dead cap money, normally what you can do is you can say, go look at what they're due and then look at their dead cap number. If that dead cap number is well below what they are owed in the next season, that person's a candidate to be moved on a team like this, to be cut, to be waived somewhere like that. The Falcons cap situation is so bad that all of their expensive players that are underperforming all have bigger dead cap numbers. It's insane. So, you look at someone like Jake Matthews at left tackle. He's paid in the 20s. I think he's due in the 20 millions next year, and his dead cap number is in the 20 millions. It's above that. Deion Jones, dead cap number in the 30s or somewhere in that neighborhood. The one exception on this that is pretty close is Grady Jarrett. So I think that you're going to look at he's very well paid. He's for one thing, like I said, you can't complain about the ownership and the resources that Arthur Blank and this team are willing to pour into. I was thinking about it the other day. If this is 1993 and Arthur Blank is the owner of the Atlanta Falcons, Deion Sanders retires an Atlanta Falcon, and that's good. That's a good thing. But you can't have somebody spending and making bad deals that are going to hamper your team. And this team is chock full of them. So I would expect an extension possibly for Grady Jarrett, and that would free up some cap room. That's the big one. Deion Jones, the way he's performing right now and the way he's paid, I don't know. Calvin Ridley's on a 1-year deal. He's got one more year. His option picked up. Would you offer him an extension right now?
I'd be looking to ship him. I think this is a team that's built not in the proper way right now. I think they're a little bit too soft in the trenches, and you could use the capital to add there. I know that you need wide receiver talent, but I'm definitely a believer in inside out. And I think Matt Ryan is smart enough as a quarterback that he doesn't need incredible receivers. He needs to be kept upright. He needs to be able to have time to go through his reads. So I think, and also Ridley was drafted. He was older when he was drafted. He's going to be 27 next year, 28.
He was a double holdback, so he came into the league. He turned 21 his freshman season, so 22, 23, came in at 24. So I think he'll be 28 or 29 in the first year of his free agent contract.
Yeah, so he says he's 26 years old, but he's going to be turning in less than a month 27. So he'll be 28 when
this year. Next year he's 28 in his option year. So in his first year of his second contract, he'll be 29 years old.
Yeah, that's scary. I mean, wide receivers, and he's not really totally dependent on physical tools, right? He's more of a crafty route runner type. So that type typically tends to last a little bit longer. But still, I don't know, because you have to talk about paying him, and I'm just putting everything about the mental health stuff with him in a box. I don't know, so I'm not even going to speak on that other than he's not available, which, hopefully he's okay and will be available.
So let's talk about it like an injury. Right now, you can't depend on him. You can't count on him as part of your team moving forward. So, but you're on the hook for $11 million with him next year. I tweeted out yesterday, if you look at the Falcons and the Broncos just had two big extensions with Tim Patrick and Cortland Sutton. If you just take the average value, now usually the cap number escalates, but if you just take the average value, they're going to pay Sutton and Patrick about $25 million next year. That's how much that Ridley and Jones will be counting against Julio Jones. So Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones will count about $25 million against the Falcons cap next year.
Yeah.
You wonder why we have problems in Atlanta.
The lot of bad contracts. That's one thing that John Elway gets a lot of gruff in Denver, and rightfully so. The last few seasons have been very dreadful. I think it's the longest postseason drought of a Super Bowl winner ever, like consecutive seasons. It's never happened that long before. I think the longest was like 4. Now they're going to be probably at 7. But looking at the Falcons guys who are coming up in 2022, do they even have cash to sign some of these guys back? I mean, Dante Fowler hasn't been great for them, but like you have the edge rushing spot in Atlanta is
Dante Fowler's gone. You'll get some relief there. He's been someone. I saw a conversation on one of the Falcons Facebook groups saying somewhere in the neighborhood of is Mike Davis, the worst Falcons free agent signing ever. I'm like, are you joking? He's not even the worst one on this team.
Yeah,
Mike Davis is $3 million. Dante Fowler was twice that. He's already taken a pay cut and had a year chopped off his deal.
Yeah.
Looking at go ahead on that one. You were making a point and I probably just interrupted you again.
It's okay. The other guys that stick out to me looking at this list, I know that he's going to be 31 years old next year, but Cordell Patterson has been probably your best second best offensive weapon. Kyle Pitts is there. But he's one that I would be interested in bringing.
On that one, he's making $3 million as a free agent.
Yeah.
What do you think he's going to get offered on a 1-year deal next year?
He's playing running back though, and he's going to be 30 years old. So I don't think it's going to be astronomical. I'm guessing probably closer to $6 million next year.
Yep, I think he at least doubles it. Now, can the Falcons double his salary and bring him back?
That's
I think
a question.
You've got to. I think you've got to. You take that money. You take that money that you're giving Mike Davis right now and give it to Cordell Patterson and go draft a workhorse running back that can get your 25 carries and 70 yards and get, and then find a way to get Cordell Patterson 10 to 15 touches for 150 yards of offense. But, we're talking about Melvin Gordon a lot and the Broncos. Melvin Gordon's he's the highest paid free agent to be coming up right now. Melvin Gordon is probably going to want to be a running back one. He's not going to get $8 million again next year, but he's going to want to probably be another RB1,
6,
probably be in the 4 to 5 range. Would he be an option for the Atlanta Falcons? Possibly. Yeah. And if I'm the Denver Broncos, I take that $8 million and I call Cordell Patterson up, call up his agent and say, hey, you want to come play in Denver? We got $8 million to spend. And he ain't turning that down. I mean, what a wild card he can be for a team. I mean, if there's any question who the Falcons MVP is, just look at the Falcons offense since he went out. I don't think they've scored. I don't think they've scored a point since he's been out.
He's been awesome. The 31-year-old for the running back position is a little bit scary, and I know that he's more than a running back, but that's one where it'll be interesting to see.
And
the other
he's never
guy
been a running back, so the wear and tear is not on there.
He had some reps with New England where he was rocking that number 84.
40 carries, dude.
Well, that was it? Okay.
Yeah.
They just really stood out to me because he was so fun to watch as a running back.
He set a career high in carries already with the Falcons.
Wow. Okay.
And he wasn't really a number one wide receiver either. So, his touches have mainly been as he's going to set career highs in catches and carries. So even total touches this year with the Falcons.
Big athlete. He plays like an H-back that's also a running back, and I really love his game. He's been one of my favorite players to watch. He's like somebody that I would use in Madden, right? Like I would take a really good tight end, like, you know what? Fullback all the way, because I'm going to get you against linebackers constantly. They can't hang. They cannot hang. The other guy who stands out to me on this list, and this is the same conversation we've had with like guys like Josie Jewell in Denver, where he's injured, but you'd like to bring him back just for the security of the position, and that's Isaiah Oliver. I'm not sure what his market will be like in the offseason, and I'm not sure the extent of his injury, but if you can bring him back for 1 to 2 years just to add cornerback depth, because he really needs it, so that way you don't go into next offseason being like, we need 2 more corners or we're cooked. That one is scary to be in. So I think Isaiah Oliver, with how he was playing, if you could sign him to a relatively cheap
is he a free agent
contract, it says he's going to be a free agent this year. Yep.
Yeah, he was playing really well, and there's a spot for him in this as a nickel back.
Yep.
Coming off an injury, I think that's a good shout. I didn't know he was going to be a free agent. That's a shame because he was starting to play. He took a lot of gruff from Falcons fans as a corner, and then he comes out and he was playing really, really well. That's a hurt. But Dave comes in with a question, says, what are the chances the Falcons keep Matt Ryan's $48.6 million cap hit? No more restructures or extensions. So, yeah, by the way, in 2022, as it stands, that's the number 1 cap hit in the NFL.
Yeah, that's just slightly higher than Kirk Cousins at 45. So that's one that not great. I mean, at some point you just have to bite the bullet, right? Like you just got to pay that money and not keep pushing it back, because you're losing yourself future years of flexibility. So, I mean, if you plan on keeping Matt Ryan forever, then I guess you could restructure it and push it back with an extension. But I don't know. I think I would be more interested in the flexibility and just biting that bullet and paying him, or seeing if maybe there's a deal out there for him. Maybe, I know there's a lot of teams that push around cap. If you can get an insurgent's the wrong word, but just a big boon of draft cap, not even a huge boon of capital, but some cap relief and some draft capital to kick off the new era in Atlanta, it's something you at least have to listen to, because this is not your cap situation. The roster right now, $48.6 million cap hit. It's not concurrent to winning football games.
No, and they did it with Julio Jones on a same type of ratio, where they got about $11 million in cap relief back while eating $15 million in dead cap money the next for this year and next year. So if you look at what they could do this coming season, he's got a $40 million cap hit for 2022. So correct me if I'm wrong here, Nick. June 1st, if they were to move him, they could take a $20 million dead cap hit for 2022 and 2023. Is that right?
Yeah, that sounds right to me.
Okay. So if you're talking about a guy with a $50 million salary cap hit, you're getting $30 million back next year. You're getting $30 million. You don't have a quarterback right now, but you're getting $30 million that you can put back in your team. And that's 2 years. So he's got 2 years on his deal. His cap hit in 2023 is $43 million. So you're talking $90 million. Are you willing to eat $20 million each year? It's a 50% tax. Are you willing to give up half your cap space to move Matt Ryan? Ooh, man, I tell you what, I'd sure like to take that $25 million and put it on the offensive line and have a rookie quarterback. I think you'd be better off for it.
Yeah. I mean, heck, it sounds like a team, and I know that this is not something that a lot of teams do because there's too many people fighting for their jobs every single year. But with next year's quarterback class in 2023 having 2 quarterbacks that look far and away better than anybody in this class, I mean, maybe you even take you tell, oh gosh, the head coach's name is escaping me right now. You tell the head coach, who's the Falcons head coach? Brain fart. Arthur Smith. Yes. You tell Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot that, this year it's we know that it's going to be a tough year. This is a year where we're going to have to get the books right, and the results on the field are the results on the field. But we're going to trust the process, and maybe we're going to end up with one of the top 2 picks in the draft, and can really build then around a young quarterback with the books finally right. Because unless you're the Saints, I guess those chickens eventually come home to roost when you keep pushing money back and keep doing
they're
these
like
extensions.
-50 in cap space for next
I
year.
At some point, it's going to have to fall back. I mean, I guess hats off to them too, the Saints, because not only are they in the negative cap space and they have so little draft capital that it makes it really hard for them, but they hit on their draft picks, right? Like their draft picks are typically hits, which is shocking for how small of a rate they have of, or how high their rate is of pick per hit. But I think personally, I love Matt Ryan. I really do think he's a good quarterback. But if I was in charge here, if I was, king of the universe of the Atlanta Falcons, I'd be like, listen, we got to get this thing right. This team is probably, I can't see any means to Super Bowl success in 2 seasons. So I think I'm biting the bullet. And if I can get capital for Matt Ryan to jumpstart that and take a year that is going to be rough on the salary cap because of that, I do it. I personally do it. What has to be done eventually must be done now.
I think it makes a lot of sense. And Dave says let him play through his contract. So here's the thing on that, Dave. And I get that because you're 2 years from being free and clear of it. He's an unrestricted free agent. But what also that means is you don't get anything for it. And you've got Matt Ryan still playing with a team that you can't build. So the team can't necessarily get any better except through the draft. And that's not going to do Matt Ryan any good the next 2 years anyway. Yeah. So it doesn't do you any good to have the quarterback and not have any pieces around him, nor have the ability to put pieces around him in the next 2 years. So, I'm gonna dive a little bit more into that topic and start making the case possibly because, we've said, Nick, that the first possible chance that Matt Ryan could be moved would be next June. Would be the first chance just because of the dead cap money. It was like 65 this year or something. Yeah. They would have had to play with 30 players this year if they waived Matt Ryan. So, but it's to me now, it's starting to become a real possibility where, Matt Ryan to a contender at worst, 2nd round pick at worst.
Oh, more than that. I think you're talking about something like maybe 2 2s and a 3 or a 1 and a 3 or something like. I mean, the quarterback tax is astronomical, right? Like just even a valuable quarterback at all. And I know that Matt Ryan is starting to play a little bit skivvy. And maybe there is less capital coming to the Falcons for some level of cap relief. I know that they can move cap around a little bit to help them there. But again, do you foresee this team being in a Super Bowl window for the rest of Matt Ryan's duration of his career and his contract in Atlanta? I personally do not. So what are we doing here? Right? Like, are we just delaying the inevitable? Because if so, I would rather get a head start on whatever the new era is, knowing full well that it could be dark. I mean, I don't think Falcons fans fully understand. Many Falcons fans fully understand. Not you, Scott. You've been around and you've seen things. But a lot of Falcons fans, Matt Ryan's been a constant there forever. It could get dark. But, I think I would rather lean one direction than sit here in the middle and piddle out the rest of Matt Ryan's career.
Yeah, frankly, you got to find somebody willing to pay him, willing to pick up some of that cap space because it is expensive. But again, if somebody's paying Kirk Cousins $28 million right now, and Teddy Bridgewater is making a combined 20 something, $20 million isn't a ton. So flat out, the question is, will you take a 2nd round pick and $25 million in available cap space to help rebuild your team for Matt Ryan? Yeah, I would.
And there's some teams out there that might be interested next year. He's still a good quarterback. There might be some serious movement with, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, maybe Kirk Cousins, maybe Derek Carr, but Matt Ryan's a good enough quarterback out there that somebody will be looking to take a swing. And I think you can even get a 1st round pick for him. So I don't know. It's tough. And I know that you don't need more dead cap, but I would personally, I think I would rather be all in on that in one season and have that hit all 1 year and then be off the books and free than, keep spreading it out year by year and really limiting yourself. I just think you need to take your medicine.
And Tyler coming in saying, I think I would let him play 1 more year, draft a QB and put him behind Matt for the first half or maybe the whole year so he can learn the offense better. Then let Matt go and make our money. I agree with you. I'm 100% behind this.
Yeah.
My question is what would you get offered? If June comes around and there's a contender out there that needs a quarterback, let's say the Denver Broncos think they're a player away and they offer because they're going to be looking for a quarterback and they got a nice roster. Yeah. They offer a first and a second, and then you pick up $25 million in available cap space. Now I'm listening, but to your point, Tyler, and this is why it makes the most sense is it's still not even that great. The dead cap next year. So if you have Matt Ryan for one more year and you draft Malik Willis and let him sit behind him, I can take that dead cap number from 25 a season to just 13 in 1 year. And so instead of basically eating 50 million in dead cap, if you move on from him in his second season, then maybe I can get something. And then his dead cap number is basically negligible, comparatively speaking. So I agree with you. I think this is the way to go, is to try and get a young quarterback, which is why, honestly, I advocated for a quarterback in this last draft. We could see this coming. And this was a very quarterback-heavy class, and you're drafting in the top 5, top 4. This is why I advocated for that guy this year to sit behind Matt Ryan for maybe 2 seasons and be ready to go, because this was a rebuild. This roster wasn't ready to compete. Some more people coming in here, so it looks like the stuff's coming in. And Ali comes in and says we don't need any more dead cap. I agree. I get it. I do. I really do. But when you start having to move Julio Jones just so you can sign your draft picks, it gives you an idea. Let me say that again. The Falcons couldn't sign Kyle Pitts unless they moved Julio Jones' amount of money. That's
not good.
Insane.
Yeah, that's
it's crazy how bad a situation it was.
Negligent to the cap.
So to be able to pick up $25 million, that's a whole offensive line. I mean, that's a premium player on the defensive line. That's Eric Harris and Deron Harmon are making $1 million each. Cordell Patterson was brought in for $3 million. Those are 3 players for $5 million. I'd love to see what Terry Fontenot can do with real money. And Blank will spend it. That's the beauty of it. Blank will spend it. We just need somebody to spend it wisely, and Thomas Dimitroff never did. Dirt coming in. Bama fan, Chelsea fan. Did you see, I don't know what to say about the Falcons, but did you see Chelsea beat the poo out of Juventus? There's a chance. There's a chance I saw that game. Yes, I did. Go Blues, 4-0. The oldest, speaking of how to build a team, helps when you don't have a salary cap. Oldest scorer in those 4 was 25. Was Timo Werner, was 25 years old. The others were 3 homegrown products of 22, 20, and 20 years old, I believe, in giving Juventus their worst loss in Champions League history.
I love me some Timo Werner. I'm a big fan of Germany International Soccer Club, so Werner doing well makes me happy. They really need a striker. We got Dave coming in saying, does Mr. Blank's age factor into any of this? I don't mean to bring it up. I apologize if it sounds insensitive. I love Mr. Blank. No, I don't think that's a bad idea at all, or a bad place to get. I don't think it's insensitive. It's definitely something to think about. And I know that the word rebuild, or hardcore rebuild, even tank, are dirty words in the NFL. Especially if you have a owner who is as good. I mean, just overall as good as Mr. Blank is. But again, I would think that him being a businessman understands the bottom line. I think it comes down to the bottom line, and what is the goal here? The goal should be probably to be competitive and win championships. And right now, I don't see this Falcons team having enough capital and draft or hits recently. And maybe Terry Fontenot changes things. I mean, we talked about how good the Saints have been at drafting over the last few seasons with limited capital. Maybe the Falcons all of a sudden start to hit on these 3rd and 4th round picks, like their 1st and 2nd round picks. But I don't know. I think that's definitely a factor, but I hope Mr. Blank would not get in the way of what would be best for the team and the organization long term, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, and if Blank has a problem, he's loyal to a fault. Maybe sticks with guys a year too long. And I don't mind that. I don't. I've been dealing with Atlanta sports for going on 45 years or so. I can be patient. I can appreciate it. We're not sitting here, it's championship or bust. We had our 2nd championship in the 3 big sports. Atlanta United got one a few years ago too. But I if you lived through the 80s and lived through the Smiths, you'll never complain about Arthur Blank. I think he'll see the empty seats and he'll what's wrong? Why is this a problem? I'll tell him, Mr. Blank, if you want to talk to me, I'll tell you exactly why it's a problem in this town. Besides just the product on the field. But I don't think his age is going to be a problem. We've seen guys go on for a long time, and some of the old school owners, the Rooney family, Robert Kraft is no spring chicken. Jerry Jones, some of these guys have been around for a long time. And Ali coming back in here saying, and I agree with this too. So I'm not against getting a new QB, but QB, in my opinion, should be the last piece. We have to build a team before getting a quarterback because quarterback tends to be the costly position, and we have many holes to fill. The problem with this is you got to get a quarterback when you can, because they're so expensive. And this was my fear about passing on a quarterback when you're drafting top 4 in a position like this. So you see what it costs to move into the top 3 to get a quarterback. Ask the 49ers. It costs them 3 first-round picks. It costs you that much to try and trade a guy, to trade for a guy. It may even cost you more than that, and those guys don't become available very much. So if you're missing a quarterback, you could be missing a quarterback for a long time. It could take several years to get that right. So if you've got a chance to get your quarterback, take it. Take it. If it's a young guy, and quarterbacks can play 15 years these days. So if you've got a quarterback you're going to sit for 2 years, that's okay. That is okay.
Yeah, and I mean, you're talking about ideally you want to have everything set in place before you get the quarterback, but you shouldn't stare a great quarterback in the face and say, nah, not now, maybe in next year, because you don't know if you're going to be in that position again. And to get in a position where you can find a quarterback that you like, you might have to trade up, trade 3 years worth of first-round picks to go up and get that guy. So that's one reason I really think that, again, if I was in Atlanta, and I'm very much a fan of the overall 3-year process window, if I could gather some capital and maybe struggle next year, but in a quarterback class that looks amazing, especially next year that looks like it's going to have 2 quarterbacks at the top. Because if it's 1 quarterback, good luck. I mean, you have to earn that guy. But if it's 2, you at least have a little bit of room to maybe move up for a guy. And I think next year is – go ahead. Yep.
To your point, you weren't getting Trevor Lawrence, but you could trade up and get Trey Lance.
Yes.
Or Zach Wilson, but you weren't getting Trevor Lawrence from the Jags. If there's just one guy,
Yep. And that's the Kyler Murray year as well. So, and then you have the cost-controlled quarterback. You're a team that has cap issues. That would make it a lot easier. So again, that's what I would be shooting for. I would be probably in this year's draft class. I'd be looking to maybe move Matt Ryan for first. I'd be looking to probably trade back for the Falcons are as well. Maybe gather some more capital and 2023 picks to really help. You know what helps with a team that's in cap trouble? Having a lot of guys on rookie contracts that are playing meaningful roles. That probably means that 2022 is a rough year, but if you are honest with fans going in to that, I think they'd understand that. I mean, week to week, their emotions will be high, but it's when a team is rebuilding and they're telling their fans, "Oh no, we're not rebuilding. We're going to be a champion." They're not dumb. Yeah, I mean, Denver has been doing that too. It's like, listen, just be honest with them. Like, I think they would be much more understanding and being like, listen, we're going to be a young, fun team. We're going to fight hard, like what the Lions are doing right now. Lions fans are embracing that Lions team. They love Dan Campbell. They're a terrible team. But at least they're honest with them, and they have a process and a direction and a plan that is somewhat transparent. Maybe not the specifics, but somewhat transparent. I respect that as a fan of the overall process of team building. So that's what I would do with the Falcons. I'm not sure if they'll do that, and maybe that's not fair to Matt Ryan too. I mean, you want to do what's fair to Matt Ryan also, because he's been such a huge part of the organization, done everything right.
About $200 million from this franchise.
That's true.
They've been fair to Matt Ryan. And they've shown that they're willing to move a guy. If Matt Ryan wants to move, it won't hurt. There's a lot more divisiveness around Matt Ryan than Julio Jones. People were pissed when Julio Jones left. But that second round pick and cap space is looking like a bargain right now. It's looking like, we swindled the Titans on that pick. Before I let you get out of here, we do have a game coming up. Mm-hmm. Give me a prediction. 4-6 Atlanta Falcons versus the 2-8 Urban Meyers, Jacksonville Jaguars. Jacksonville's won 2 of 5, I think. Some really ugly losses in there. I think the average score, again, over these past 2 teams is 30-7. The over-under is at 46. So it's bad offenses against bad defenses. Something's got to give. What do we got?
I think the Falcons are going to win this one. I see them winning about 23-13. Probably, but it's going to be a low-scoring game. I don't think either of these offenses are that good. But I think the Falcons are the Jags. I'm not impressed by anything they're doing on offense other than Trevor Lawrence, and I think the Falcons have enough defensive ability. It's not the talent. I think they're playing above their head with the defense, but I think they have enough of their defense is playing at a good enough level that they should be the difference makers in this game. But you never know. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is the level of quarterback where he could go unconscious and just hit throw after throw after throw, where they end up winning a game. He is that type of quarterback. But I don't think that's super likely. So the Falcons end up winning this one.
So I agree with you. I think the game plan this year has basically been we don't have the personnel to go toe-to-toe with people, so we're going to try and squeeze the life out of a game and make it a one-possession game at the end. Arthur Smith even said as much this week. He said, we're 4-2 in one-possession games. That's the plan. Keep it close. See if you can keep it close to the fourth quarter and see if, Matt Ryan we can get the ball to Matt Ryan with one possession, down one possession or up one possession. Frankly, it's better off with this team down one possession. And I think the defense is going to do a good enough job to let Jacksonville make some mistakes. Might not even be the rookie quarterback that makes them, but I like the under on this one. It was 46.5. Each team's given up 30 points each, but the teams are only scoring 7. So I like the under on this one with a bunch of field goals. If you've got fantasy guys on this, bench them, sit them, except maybe Cordero Patterson if he's back, and that's even a question mark. So I wouldn't start a single fantasy player in this game. And I'm looking at, like 16-13, 19-13, literally one touchdown each, and then a bunch of field goals in the red zone. Falcons get the win and move to 5-6.
And then fall to like the 18th pick in the draft.
Maybe. The thing about that is with all of those teams, you're only one spot out of that of falling like that, but there's a bunch of teams in between too. So it's not just that it's one game. Those other teams are playing games too. So I think I look at the top 10 in this draft, and I'm very, very interested in the Falcons having a top 10 pick because the top 10 prospects in this draft are basically edge, hybrid defensive tackle, defensive end, which are perfect in 3-4s, defensive backs, and offensive tackles. I'm like, yes, please. Give me best player available at any one of those positions for the Falcons, and he's an immediate starter.
Yep. The only one that doesn't fit, I mean, he's a defensive back. The only one that doesn't fit kind of specifically what you're looking for is Kyle Hamilton, but he looks good enough.
You're starting 2 journeyman safeties on 1-year contracts. He's an immediate starter too. I mean, he's a bona fide definite upgrade if Kyle Hamilton comes in at safety as a game changer kid from Atlanta.
Yeah.
It fits. I'll take Kyle Hamilton also. Any one of those guys.
Yep. Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's we'll have plenty of time to talk draft and everything there, but I got to get going myself. I got to get into walk the dog and then get to work. But thanks very much for having me. I'll see you tomorrow morning for a Thanksgiving episode of Broncos for Breakfast.
Yeah, Falcons fans, if you want to join us, talk some more draft, talk some more football, we are doing a Thanksgiving edition over at Mile High Huddle tomorrow morning, 9:30 Eastern. I was like, I don't have anything to do, and you're up too early for anything else to be going on at 6:30 a.m. So we'll be on tomorrow morning. And Little Ram Man says 26-24 only because of home field edge. Hey, I think I said before, I may have said it last night, it's hard to put down a lifelong Atlanta sports fan. We've been through the ringer. What can you say to us that's going to hurt us more than our own teams have? You can't do it. You don't have to apologize for picking against the Falcons. Come on now. So on that note, we're going to get out of here. Appreciate you being here. If you have any questions, I actually follow the YouTube stream questions and comments a little bit better than I do the Facebook one. So head on over to the YouTube channel, which is just YouTube. Let me see if I've got a banner up here. YouTube.com/C/Scott Kennedy. It's pretty easy. And, thank you for, like, follow, share, subscribe, and all that kind of stuff. But we will be back for sure every Wednesday, 10 a.m. to talk all Falcons. Until then, we'll see you next time.